I call it shifting responsibility instead of passing, right? His pass accuracy, his duels, his strength in there, he was unbelievably good.
It's the final run-in. We're coming towards the end of the season, and there's so many talking points from the world of football. So we've gone digging in the YouTube comments to find the questions that you want answered, and there is nobody better to answer those questions than the Sun's tactics guru, Dean Scoggins. Deano, like I said, there's so much to talk about in football
I like
right
this.
now.
This is good for the ego. This is amazing. But yeah, look, thanks for all the comments. I love reading them. I go through them, and I do reply to most, even some of the ones that are, not quite as nice as the other ones. But look, it's debate, right? It's football debate, and that's what we love. And if we're spurring debate, then let's keep it going.
I like that you threw in spurring debate there. Deano's decision. So let's crack on with question number one. Arsenal, a historic victory against Real Madrid in the Champions League at the Emirates, winning 3-0, courtesy of a couple of absolutely incredible free kicks from Declan Rice.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Declan Rice looked like a world-beater against Real Madrid, but why is that?
Well, I'm starting to ask questions about why he's never taken those type of free kicks before, especially in an England shirt with my England hat on. Look, Declan Rice is a world-class football player, and the debate over him has been quite full. And, when we did the England episode, so this has come off the back of the England episode, we talked about how he was almost wasted in that England midfield because he passes the ball sideways a lot. That's not a bad thing. That's not a criticism. That's how you build attacks at times, okay? Sometimes he does it too much, but then that's getting used to the players around him, and he's, at Arsenal, he's got Odegaard there. In this game, right, Declan Rice played much, much further forward and he was freed up. The parachute was taken off. But don't underestimate the Saka factor, because the Saka factor in this is enormous. Why have Arsenal been a little bit turgid, a little bit sloppy the last few weeks and looked at times like they can't break a team down? As well as Ethan Nwaneri has played and as brilliant a footballer as he's going to be, he is not Bukayo Saka. And immediately in this Real Madrid game, Saka is hugging that touchline, playing against David Alaba, who had come back from injury and looked like it as well, whereas Saka looked like he was coming back free. And then what happened was Jude Bellingham, being the hard-working midfield player that he is, has come back to help out. What that then does is it moves the midfield sideways for Real Madrid. So instead of having a compact sort of three in there where Bellingham is then freed up to go forwards, Bellingham's coming across to do that job. The other two have spread themselves out, and Declan Rice is then freed up to go into those more attacking positions and become a real threat. He actually only made 30 passes in the game, which is quite low for a midfielder in a Champions League game. But his effectiveness in going forward and driving Real Madrid backwards. The other thing, as well as Saka, is Miles Lewis-Skelly. Now, without the two free kicks in that game, Miles Lewis-Skelly was the best player on the pitch.
Agreed.
His pass accuracy, his duels, his strength in there, he was unbelievably good. And what that meant was, again, we talk about inverted fullbacks, he came in and made a midfield two with Thomas Partey. They were brave Arsenal, as we hoped they would be. And then that means Declan Rice has got a little bit less defensive responsibility in transitional areas, as I say, because again, Bellingham's gone with Saka. So if you imagine Bellingham's taken out of that midfield and Miles Lewis-Skelly comes into it, Arsenal have got a dominance there, which has allowed Rice to be freer and go forward. So yeah, he did look a world beater from a dead ball and an open play scenario. And I just feel very much like Declan Rice, the leader, came to the fore in that game as well. We've talked a lot about Odegaard. We've talked a lot about them not having a striker, although Marino did a very good job, scored another goal.
Great finish.
Yeah, he's actually scored more goals against Real Madrid than any other team he's played against, which is an amazing thing. Imagine having that in your locker as a footballer. But yeah, that group worked much better together. And yes, look, Rice was fabulous, but don't underestimate the impact of MLS and Saka.
To bring it back to Declan Rice, you mentioned his leadership qualities, and he defied Arsenal's lauded set-piece coach who wanted him to swing it in.
I loved that. I loved it.
And Rice was talking about how it didn't make sense from that angle, and Bukayo Saka said, if you're feeling it, take the shot on.
Yeah.
And he did take the shot on. What does that speak about his character in terms of, we know how good their set-piece coach is, but he felt the moment, he took the moment, and he created two incredible moments as a result.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the set-piece coach, because I got a lot of stick for it earlier in the season talking about the set-piece coach, but he can't take credit for everything. And then also when he tells him to cross it and he scores that, then maybe he should sit back down. But yeah, look, I just think it showed that this was a game, and this is a part of the season, as we're talking about, where it's players who need, and Arteta quite rightly said, players' magic moments. You know, this is an opportunity. And so if the ball gets put down there, you want to say, I'm going to take the opportunity. I'm going to do it. And Declan Rice has become that leader and become that mindset. Look, if he put it over the bar, does it matter? It was 0-0 or 1-0 at the time. And obviously he was going to shoot from the second one after what he did with the first one. But, you know, it doesn't matter. It's a player wanting to put himself in there. Too often in football matches, a lot at the moment where games have become a little bit robotic and a little bit turgid, that it's because players don't want to take the risk themselves. They want to, I call it shifting responsibility instead of passing, right? No, you pass it. I'll pass it to you because I don't want to play that cutting ball in case it gets cut out and then my stats are down, right? Take responsibility. And Declan Rice has done that brilliantly well, right? And look, I'm gonna give a bit of a Tottenham dig here with my Tottenham hat on. Brennan Johnson scored 2 goals against Southampton last week, right? And the third, then Tottenham got a penalty. He should be hugging the ball and saying to everybody else, no chance, are you taking it? I'm taking it. A, because I want a hat-trick, and B, because I want to take responsibility before we go into a big European week. And no, he sort of semi-asked if he was allowed to take it, and then in the end up, Matis Tel scored the goal. Fair play, Matis Tel, but that shows with Declan Rice that, look, I'm going to own it, I'm going to take responsibility, and he's becoming the main man in a very good team.
On the previous episode of Tactics Exposed, I talked about analytics versus manalytics. It's more about the Jims and the Joes than it is about the X's and O's in some instances, and we saw that with Declan Rice. Really quickly, before we talk about Rice's position, what free kick was better, the first or the second?
I think the second one. I mean, I always, as a sort of mid-ranking amateur footballer that I was.
Give yourself more credit, you know. You're a baller. I've heard about it.
I was all right. But I always think that I judge a goal on could I have done it?
Yeah.
Right? So if you gave me 100 goes, could I do it? The first one, maybe 1 in 100. The second one, not even 1 in a million. Okay, no chance of much. So I think the second one, and of course because of the pace that he hits it at as well. The first one was slightly further out, but on the angle, and also the fact that, as we just talked about, that attitude to I'm going to give this a go because the goalkeeper and the wall were not quite in the right position. Take nothing away from the strike. Bang. I think the second one.
I agree. Against arguably the best goalkeeper in the world. Yeah. Incredible free kicks. On Declan Rice, is he playing in the wrong position? Because we see him play in a different position for Arsenal than we do for England. And like you mentioned, for England, it feels like he's slightly wasted.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because at the moment for Arsenal, I think his position is everywhere, isn't it? And that's, you know, he's here, he's there, I won't swear, he's everywhere, Declan Rice. But he's, you know, it's absolutely brilliant. And, you know, will the Arsenal fans sing that they got him at half the price of what he should actually be? Because at the moment, he's 2, maybe even 3 players in one. So, yes, Arteta is getting the best out of him from a midfield position where when they're without the ball and they drop into shape, you know, back with my tactics hat on again, back in the shape, then Declan Rice comes into a position next to Thomas Partey. It means the fullback gets back in position. And because of the ground he covers, you know, they've been calling him the horse because he doesn't stop running, that he can get into 2 positions in one. But then when they invert the fullback in Lewis Skelly, Rice is then freed up the side, that inside left channel. So Miles Lewis Skelly's English, right? Played brilliantly in those England games. Can we get him doing the same thing for England to then free up Declan Rice in an England shirt? And I tell you what, if you had another holder alongside him and then you've all of a sudden got Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham coming at you from deep, then players are going to be frightened of that. Don't get me started on who gets left out in the 10 position then, because we can't have 12 players. But yeah, no, he's not playing in the wrong position. As I say, for Arsenal, he's playing everywhere. Just get Declan Rice on the field and tell him to run.